Man, I'm not gonna lie, like recently playing competitive games has like reignited my spark, my passion for learning in general. Recently I've been playing a lot of competitive games. I've been playing stuff like Tekken. Recently been playing Marathon, Bungie's new extraction shooter. I've been playing Counter-Strike. And to be honest, it all started with Tekken, right? I've never been like the biggest fighting game person, so I'm not very good at fighting games. I like them, but I never play them enough to get deep in and like really learn the games. But recently I've been playing Tekken 8 with my friends and shit, and yeah, I'm not gonna lie, like getting my ass handed to me has never been so fun. With Tekken in particular, I think because it's a very new thing to me, like actually learning, the inputs, learning the fundamentals, all the combos, and learning a character and stuff like that. The newness of that is like very exciting for me. In the past, I've always been a very perfectionistic person, and somewhere along the road of my life, I kind of developed a heavy perfectionism and really, judged myself and was harsh on myself when I didn't reach the potential I felt like I could reach, and it just kind of made learning anything very miserable for me. And honestly, I don't know where that like started, whether it was in school or sometime after that. I'd have to maybe do a little bit more reflection to pinpoint that. But the point I'm trying to make is that recently I've kind of learned to get over it, and maybe I'll do another video talking about all that. But recently I've just been enjoying learning new things for the sake of it and for the fun of it, especially in games. And I think games have helped me a lot because games are so fun. Like, even though I suck at Tekken, it's fun to just see the little improvements and to do a deep dive and really like going full degen, watching videos on YouTube and learning everything. Like, even though I might get my ass handed to me a bunch of times, it's still fun to see the little bit of progress and to just queue up again. And even with other games, especially, I've been glazing Marathon because that game is just, it speaks to, man, everything I love about games. But with Marathon, that's a extraction shooter, and those are very hardcore games. If you die, you lose all your loot and all the things that you went in with, and there's a very high skill ceiling with that game. And so even in spite of that, like in the past, that would have really, really bothered me, and I would never have touched a game like that. But, as I've kind of allowed myself to soften my perfectionism and my, judgment of myself, I've kind of become okay with failure and okay with, understanding that failing is part of the process of learning and kind of enjoying the journey, and I hate, it sounds so cliche, but that's really what it's all about. Like, even in that game, even if I die and lose all my good stuff, like at the end of the day, I just want to play the game and I just want to learn the game and have fun with it, and the learning and improvement is like kind of like a carrot on top. It comes afterwards, but the whole fun is in the learning and in the playing of the game, And so I've realized that like this kind of outlook has started to transfer a lot to everything else in my life. I've always been like a very multi-passionate person. I really just enjoy trying new things and learning new things. So, I've always been into like drawing and music, and I've been learning a little bit of Japanese, taking my time with it because that's a tough language, but still been enjoying learning it. And again, in the past, like I sort of would have reached a point where, I start it and I'm really excited, but once it gets, a little tough, I get really, really frustrated, and it becomes really discouraging. Like the barrier between where I feel I could be and where I currently am, I feel like recently that's kind of gone away. And to be quite honest, a lot of that has to do with like self-worth and self-identity and things like that, which I feel like over the past couple of years I've really, healed a lot of that within myself. I feel like it's so easy to attach your worth and your identity to the things that you do, but the dangerous part of that is that, the moment you can't do that thing, or the moment you're not good at that thing, or the moment you see someone who's better at that thing than you, then your sense of self-worth immediately plummets. And so I've really, learned and internalized the fact that my worth and our worth, you watching, anyone watching, everyone in the world, our worth isn't determined by the things that we do, and our identity is so much bigger than the things that we do and, the things we spend our time on in life. And so really understanding that, my worth has nothing to do with what I do, it's been very freeing for me, because now anytime that I fail at something, it's not a personal failure. It's not something that's wrong with me as a person, it's just part of the process. Because, as they say, again, cliche, but you can't really learn without failing. Failing is part of the process and how you grow and how you learn, And, since we're speaking about learning, obviously, school comes up as a topic. And I feel like most schools, I'm American, so I can definitely speak for most American schools. I can't speak for the rest of the world, but I feel like most schools don't really teach you how to learn. They just teach you how to memorize information and, be obedient, and they really punish you when you fail, which is very counterintuitive to real learning. Not just schools, but the way society is a lot of the time in general, very discouraging when it comes to failure and not being perfect right out of the gate. And I think that messes up a lot of people. But when your sense of self-worth isn't tied to your achievements or your failures, because it has to be both sides of the coin. You can't not attach to your failures, but then attach to your achievements. You have to understand that your worth is, you have to understand that you're worthy as a person, regardless of what you've achieved and regardless of how much you failed. And when you separate yourself from those things, you become free. And I feel like that's kind of what the point that I'm at now is, like, I don't really care too much about reaching the goal or about my failures. And so I'm free to just learn and have fun in the moment. And that's kind of what I've been doing with, games, but with everything in general. It's like, I'm just doing it for the sake of it. I'm not really like, the goal is there and it's exciting to reach towards, but I understand that once I reach it, I'm going to feel whatever about it, like you can dream about getting a certain thing, like getting a certain car, or I don't know, eating a fucking piece of cake, or that's a bad example. Like, you can dream about certain things, but I'm sure a lot of you can attest that once you've, gotten that thing, it kind of becomes whatever after a while, no matter how much you've coveted it beforehand. And so that becomes more of like a carrot on top, but the whole fun is in the actual doing. Looking back, when I really think about it, gaming was one of the first things in my childhood that I really enjoyed learning, like when you're a kid, you love learning. That's all you do when you're like very young, from like, 1 to 5 before preschool, you're learning constantly all the time. And, for me, aside from things like learning to ride a bike or playing basketball, things like that, I was also playing games. Like, I was playing fucking Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, Zelda, Super Mario Sunshine, and some of those games are like pretty difficult, especially, Zelda with puzzles and a lot of stuff like that. Like, when you're really young, like, 4, 5, 6 years old, like, it takes time to just even learn how to hold a controller and use it properly. But none of that was a difficult process or something that I dreaded. It was fun. It was just what I wanted to do. And unfortunately, I feel like a lot of people think that having fun and learning are these like exclusive things, that they can't go together. But I feel like true learning always happens, the easiest when you are having fun with that thing. And that's something that we kind of unlearn the more we grow up, unfortunately. So like the big takeaway I really want to kind of get across is that learning is supposed to be fun. Like, when you're learning a game, that's learning. That's no different than learning anything else. It doesn't matter if it's mathematics or music, or you're learning how to, public speech, or any skill that you could possibly learn. It's all the same. It's all learning, and the process is pretty much the same. You fail, and then you learn from those failures and improve. That's, it's all the same. So I feel like it kind of sucks sometimes that gaming gets a bad rap, because gaming is a perfect, sort of environment to teach people how to learn, because especially with certain games like fighting games or even like shooters or whatever kind of game, like the feedback loop is so instant that, it's a fun way to understand how to learn and improve and how to go through that process. And I feel like if you can kind of apply that same mentality to other things in your life, then learning becomes fun, you know? And also part of that, I feel like you should be, you know, choosing things that you're actually excited about, that you actually want to do. That's half of it. Because if you're just taking on a challenge, but there's no enjoyment, there's no interest, then that's just work. But a challenge that's fun, you know, that's how it's supposed to feel. That's how it should be. Like, no genius or no like prodigy like absolutely 100% hates what they're doing. They have a passion for it. Even if they have frustrating times trying to overcome a challenge, they're still very passionate about whatever art form they're learning, you know? Like, a piano prodigy doesn't hate playing the piano. They love playing the piano, which is why they get so frustrated when they're not, you know, living up to their own standards or their own potential that they see for themselves. But the point is that that feeling of passion is the same regardless of what form it takes, whether that be, you know, a game or becoming a doctor. It's still the people who are the most passionate about it are the ones who learn the fastest and improve the fastest, because that's all they're thinking about and that's all that's on their mind. And so I feel like schools have given the word learning a bit of a negative connotation sometimes, but it really doesn't have to be that way. Like, learning should be fun. It should be exciting. If you're like really interested in the thing that you're learning and engaging in, then you'll be looking forward to it. It's not something that you're going to dread. And so it might sound counterintuitive, but if you kind of tend to struggle with the idea of learning things or sticking with things, but you're into playing games and there's certain games that you've always wanted to get better at, I would honestly encourage that you kind of just let yourself indulge in it, because I know it on the surface it might sound like it'll be a waste of time, but in my experience I feel like it's given me inspiration to learn other things, and it's teaching me how to learn, if that makes sense. Learning the fundamentals of one thing is going to be practically the same as learning the fundamentals of another thing. You know, you learn the basics, you practice, you fail, and then you figure out the areas that you need to improve on, and then you practice that and you just keep repeating. And if it's something that you're actually interested in and engaged in, then the process is going to feel, you know, engaging and fun and entertaining, and it won't be a complete slog. It might be challenging, yes, but it won't be this force that you have to make yourself do. But just remember that regardless of where you are in that journey, whether you're a beginner or you're an expert or you're trying to climb to the next level, that has nothing to do with your worth as a person. Your skill in a certain area is just your skill in a certain area. It doesn't mean anything about you as a person or your worth or your identity. It's just this thing that you enjoy to do. And as long as it stays something that you just enjoy doing, then you won't feel like you're running against the wall when you're not getting where you feel you could be, because that kind of perfectionism in truth is only going to hold you back. So yeah, go ahead, queue up some League, queue up some Counter-Strike, Valorant, queue up some Tekken, and don't get tilted. Just have fun with the process. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the matter. Let me know what you guys think, and I appreciate you for watching. Peace.